spending your Friday with us today, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Welcome to Land Your Dream Job Webinar, Episode 5, hosted by ICAway. And today, we will discuss how to become early talents for top global companies like SAP. Now, let me introduce you to today's speaker. So she is the Student Training and Rotation Internship Lead for SAP America. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, SAP is the winner of the #1 intern program of 2019, and SAP's more than 1,000 interns represent 11 different countries. Now, going back, our speaker for today has spearheaded this program to expand university engagement and improve the recruitment and retention of early talent. Through SAP's Global Rotational Program, students can complement their university studies with real-world experience. She also has a bachelor's degree in Business Administration and Management from Penn State University and a master in Business Administration and Management from Westchester University of Pennsylvania. Please join me in welcoming today's speaker, June Huynh.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, June.
No, thank you so much, Alyssa. And you said my last name perfectly. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here.
Okay, great. So our next speaker is an experienced human capital consultant and a career coach for international students. Originally from Thailand, she moved to the US and joined one of the world's top consulting firms in Chicago. With more than 15 years of global experience in companies like BMW, Accenture, and Deloitte, she helped companies develop talent development initiatives that impacted employees from 16,000 to 200,000 worldwide. Today, as the founder of ICAway, her mission is to empower international students for employability and serve international educators as a trusted advisor. She holds an executive MBA through Sasson and Kellogg School of Management Global Partnership and certification of senior professional in HR and by HRCI. Let's all welcome Coach Kwan Siegel.
Thank you, Alyssa, for the introduction. And now we would love to learn more about you.
All right, so my name is Alyssa Louise Geonanga. I'm an international student from the Philippines, and I'm a junior studying business at North Park University here in Chicago. Now, I discovered ICAway through a webinar like this, and it discussed how to be visible in corporate America. And so today I'm very honored to moderate this webinar, and I look forward to learning more and hearing your insights.
That's amazing, Alyssa. And I am so proud of you for being here, taking the initiative to reach out to me 2 years before your graduation and so actively asking questions. And now you are our moderator, right? That's so amazing.
It's a full circle.
It is. And for June, thank you so much for collaborating with me in this event. We got to know each other. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago at the University of Cincinnati when you spoke at one of the world's cooperative education conference. And I also presented in that event, and I got a chance to attend your event. And I just love your talk so much and how you have helped so many students build their career in the early stage. You are such a great mentor. So thank you so much for joining me today. I know this is a busy schedule for you.
Oh, thank you so much, Kwan, for having me. I admire what you are doing here, especially with international students. They are such a great population of students who need some guidance in terms of how the US works and especially when they want to stay here. So I admire everything you're doing, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And Alyssa, I know that you have a few questions, right, that you prepare for us. But maybe before we kickstart, would you like to run a little bit of the housekeeping to let everyone know how they can also ask questions as well?
All right, so I just want all the participants to know that this session is recorded, and if ever you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and after all the questions have been asked, we will pick one of your questions and ask June or Coach Kwan to answer them for you.
And yes, leave your questions in the chat box, and we also have this slider that I Let me share one more time. Let's log into that link, slido.sli.do, and put in the code 253824, and you can start leaving your questions there as well. All right, Alyssa, we are ready for you.
Okay, now for today's event, we will start with our first question. So our first question for today is, who are early talents? June, can you speak about that?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that from an SAP perspective view. And I'd like to think that most companies would see it as this as well. So SAP defines early talents as having 0 to 3 years professional experience and being hired into what we call a headcount relevant role. Headcount relevant probably is more wording for HR, but it's really getting hired into, a full benefited position. So it's not so much an intern necessarily. But we do also categorize our interns as early talents because they also, are the 0 to 3 years professional experience. So that's how SAP defines early talents.
All right. And so our follow-up question is, why do top companies like SAP have the Early Talent Program?
Yeah, such a great question. SAP, and I think a lot of companies out there are, especially when I'm at career fairs speaking to other employers, have these early talent programs, right? So we know now in the industry we have a lot of baby boomers and older, mature adults who are retiring early, right? And then we know technology and industries are changing. And so how do we fill that gap? How do we fill that workforce gap, right? And it's really about now these early talents coming out of university, trained from a theoretical perspective and maybe some internship perspective. And so for us, it's part of our strategy, actually, SAP strategy and vision to really bring early talents in to fill that gap. That the older generation are retiring and new technology coming in. Who is going to fill that gap? And we feel that early talents are really best equipped, most adaptable, most curious, and they will be able to fill that gap.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I would love to add a little bit of some, recent examples that I have as well. Alyssa, I'm not sure if you remember Fernanda Garcia, our friend at ICAway, and she just came back to our weekly session last week, right?
Yes,
she is a great example of someone who is recognized as an early talent by Deloitte because she just joined her graduate program in the accounting program. Haven't really completed her semester yet. She still have like 2 years to graduation, but now Deloitte has already offered her the summer internship program for next year. How did she do that, right? She attended a career fair and started out by not being afraid to speak to the company's representative and share with them what she has done in the past, even with her home country is considered as experience, right? And from that conversation, they also really appreciate her personality because she is such a cheerleader, right? Because you met with her before, she's just so amazing. And from that point, they put her in the recruitment process, fasten up the process. The partner called her directly to give her good news that she's got recruited before she's even got the offer letter from the recruiter. And that is the person that is recognized as an early talent by global company.
That's amazing. And I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for young professionals, just like me, who haven't started and haven't got the experience yet, but there are companies that are willing to give students the chance. So going that route, how does one become an early talent for top companies?
June, would you like to start that?
Yeah, I can certainly start that. And talking about SAP, so there's a couple routes there, right? If you're fortunate enough to get into an internship, whether it's a top company, well-known company, or even a local kind of small business, I think the first thing to do is really, get that experience, right? even if it's not paid, if you're able to some way to shadow, you know, for a couple weeks, to just have that on your resume, your profile, I think that's an excellent way to kind of get in as an early talent, right? So say you're almost done with university, you're a senior, you know, you have those internships that you can showcase. Now, if we talk about kind of how do I get an internship in general, right? You know, especially when you have very little experience on your resume, I think that more and more companies now are recognizing that it's okay. You know, we're building these kind of internship programs, kind of like, you know, the one that we have, where we want to bring you in and we want to train you, you know, but what will make you stand out to us is really just, you know, obviously being enrolled in university and some specific major that's related to the internship. And I think the softer skills really help you stand out. And both from, you know, an internship and a full-time position, right? I can give you an example at career fairs. You know, we talk about that a lot, and this is the season. It's like, you know, you get a line full of people and you get this 5-minute, if that, conversation with a recruiter and or hiring manager. How do you make yourself stand out? It's really about the softer skills. I can scan your profile and your resume and say, okay, you have this skill that I might need or this, but you know, as Kwan said, the personality, right? The innate curiosity, how you brand yourself. We talked a little bit about that, and SAP has a big, you know, training on branding. And so those are really important things, you know, when students come up to me or even during virtual career fair and they know, you know, about the company, they research different roles, you know, ask inquisitive questions. And I think I mentioned before, you know, I read an article that the LinkedIn VP had said, what makes, you know, candidates stand out is really when they're researching something on a company website and something catches their eye that they resonate with, and they have that conversation with the employer. You know, I saw that your mission is to help the world run better and improve people's lives. Well, guess what? That's my mission too. Let's have a conversation, right? You wouldn't believe how many times students, they just have not done their research. And it takes 5 minutes, right? Google that company and learn. Kwan, what do you think?
Love everything that you just shared. 100% with everything. I just have a quick question to you, June. Alyssa, if you don't mind, I would like to, you know, go outside the script a little bit, because I know that you recruited lots of, you know, technical candidates for SAP, but you mentioned about soft skills, right? What are the soft skills that you think, if, let's say, 2 candidates right in front of you, the same technical skills, the same proficiency, what would be the soft skills that make the other one have a better chance of getting recruited by SAP?
Great question. Communication skills, how they present themselves, their curiosity, and how do you look for curiosity is probably what you're all thinking. How do you interview for it? You know, again, it goes back to researching. Look at my profile, look at the maybe people who I'm connected with, you know, go on the website, right? Or maybe you've joined a lot of student clubs because you're so passionate about, you know, machine learning topic or whatever topic. That really shows me that you've just thought outside of the box. I am mentoring a young lady that is in high school now, and she's, I think, grade 12. I've met her when she was in grade 10. Actually. And I met her at a community college fair. So we have a local community college that's right down the street. Someone sits on the board. So we try to, you know, make sure we're partnering and connecting. And this high schooler comes in and she's just so well spoken. She has it all together. She knows everything about SAP. And, you know, we keep in contact, and we have a high school program. I got her into that high school program. It was just a week-long unpaid thing. She took advantage of it. And, you know, she was from Philadelphia, and we're a little bit outside of Philadelphia. Long story short, I said, how did you get here? You know, she didn't have a license at the time. She said, I took 3 buses just to get here. And that alone speaks volumes, right? You know, and she cried at the last day. And I said, why are you crying? And she said, you've given me just an amazing experience here, you know, just being here a week, seeing how the atmosphere, how friendly everybody is at SAP, and just learning. And then she then asked me to be her mentor. So we kept in contact, and, you know, I'm supposed to talk to her soon, but this past summer, she got an internship with NASA.
Wow.
Yes. So, and she hasn't
Like
even graduated high school.
Yes.
Yes. And she takes advantage of webinars such as this, you know, different things that get advertised in LinkedIn. She's in high school still and has a LinkedIn profile. So those are things. You talk about standing out, you talk about, you know, soft skills, practicing, you know, talking, communicating, because look, you don't have to have the most experience. You don't have to have a very polished, you know, fancy resume. I like to see that passion in you, whether it's the way you talk or the different things that, you know, you're involved in. So long story short.
So great. I got goosebumps
Me too.
from this story. Thank you so much, June, for sharing with us. Yes, she's
Sure.
really an early talent. The way that she's so proactive, right? Go beyond miles to get to the point, you know, to do anything, to be successful. Show up, really show up.
Yeah. I love her perseverance. For her to take 3 buses, it shows her commitment and shows her intention of really going into the program with her mind and her goals set already.
Yes.
No wonder she's in NASA.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I had another student I hired, and they said that they take the bus to SAP, and they're further in Philly. And I said, how long does it take you? And she said 2 hours each way. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm not sure if I would even. How do you do that? Why? You know? And they said it's SAP. I couldn't miss out on this opportunity. So you do what you have to do, and that shows, as you said, Alyssa, resilience and perseverance.
Absolutely. And touching on that topic, since we already mentioned a few of the qualifications and distinctions to stand out during a career fair, I'd like to ask Coach Juan if that's all right. Like, what are your tips, or like, what advice could you give for international students in particular to stand out? Because given that in an international, or like in a career fair, there's internationals as well as other domestic students. So what's our competitive advantage or our unique point?
Absolutely, Alyssa. Thank you for the question. And most, you know, many international students always reach out to me and said, I don't want to attend a career fair because most employers, they don't sponsor. So I just don't want to take any effort to be there. They don't sponsor anyway. Why should I be there? Right? So that is the first mistake that will stop you from getting close to your goal. Connect with the US professionals. First of all, remove your mindset about I need to hunt for that sponsorship, because you have CPT, OPT, use it. They are your work authorization. Be confident that you don't need work sponsorship right away when you get hired. So be confident with that and use it, right? When you are at the career fair, all you have to do is just to position yourself as someone who knows your goal. Most companies will ask you what kind of, you know, position you are interested in. And you don't even have to wait for them to ask that question. You can share with them during your pitch. If it's virtual career fair, you can write in the chat box. If it's on-site career fair, make sure you arrive early so you can get in line when it's not busy yet, and you can have a meaningful conversation, right? So pitch yourself, know what you want, and also, as June mentioned, do lots of research before going to a career fair. So the uniqueness about international and domestic students at a career fair is not really different. Okay, the techniques is not really different, but for international students, you normally remove yourself the opportunities to get in front of the employers just because you need work sponsorship. So just remove that mindset. That is all I ask. June, do you have any additional comment, because you have seen so many students at career fairs? How many career fairs have you been involved with now?
Oh, Kwan, so I've been in this role for 6 years now, and I attend every fall and every winter. Most of the Philadelphia University career fairs. So I've been at a ton, both on-site and virtual. I think what you have said is spot on. And look, we get it, right? As an international, you are so hungry to have this opportunity, and be considered the same way as a domestic student is, for sure. But if the first question comes out of your mouth when you meet me is, do you sponsor? I'm going to be taken aback a little bit, right? And let them get to know you a little bit, right? Exactly what Kwan said. Kind of, I know it's hard, but kind of just remember you're just a student as well too, like everybody else. Let them see the authentic you, let them see your skills, your curiosity, and then see what happens from there. And also apply, take that chance, apply. As Kwan said, you have your OPT, CPT, I've seen managers, really, they'll say, no, I don't have budget to sponsor or anything, but then you present a great candidate and they are overwhelmed. They're like, okay, I'll figure out, I'll find the money somewhere, right? So you just never know. I know it's really challenging, but for me, I've also converted interns to full-time who were international, and I'll be the first to raise my hand and say it's a challenge. Our internship program, the goal is to have 80+% converted from intern to full-time, and so it's already a challenge to convert interns in general. Now you're putting another added challenge of an international, where I'm now trying to convince the teams, but to sponsor, but not just the teams, right? A lot of it has to do with the government legality policies that we at SAP and other companies don't have any say in. But I will say I've made it happen. I have converted, and it does happen. It's a challenge, but if you work with your employer, you work with Coach Kwan, you will be fully equipped to be able to secure that job or that internship.
I absolutely agree. And again, I think ICAway students can back me up on this, but it is important to build genuine connections. You cannot immediately come up to someone and just say, do you sponsor? And expect them to do it for you. You have to introduce yourself and then work your way, or build genuine relationships. And Coach Kwan, there's somebody who'd like to ask a question.
Yes, we see our old friend, Me. Me, how are you today? From University of Cincinnati.
How are you?
I'm doing great. So good to see you here.
Thank you. So I have a question here, and right now I'm a senior, so I'm specifically looking for full-time jobs. So when we say no to the will you sponsor question, I know that's something that we at least should do to get into the interview rounds. So where should we bring up the question, I know that some companies already give out the offer and then rescind it because we're international students, and I just don't know where to raise the questions, or sometimes will that be considered by companies falsification of information or something like that. I just wonder what your perspective is on that. When we should bring up and how we should approach it, I guess, to be transparent and to also get the sponsorship if the company has it.
Great question, me, and I'm sure majority of our friends today have the same question. I can share my experience as well, but June would love to hear your thoughts when you recruit a student. When should they come up and let you know that they are international student?
Yeah. So at least I would say for one internship, I mean, obviously, usually that's easier, right? I think you can use your CPT or
CPT.
yeah, okay. I do get it mixed up, so forgive me. But so that's not too bad. And I would like, at least usually in the interview process, right? I usually ask, you know, to understand, do you need sponsorship later on? I will say from a full-time perspective, when you're getting screened from a recruiter, some of our applications actually ask that as well, because there are some, you know, roles that absolutely just, they can't. You know, and also like we have a government sector that we do accounts just for government, and they only want, you know, US citizens. So sometimes you will be asked that immediately. And obviously we would encourage you to be honest and open. Now, if it's not asked that, you go through the screening, the recruiter talks to you about your profile, says you're a good fit. Okay. You can then, or you don't have to. Eventually it's going to come out, because you do need sponsorship, and we need the proper documents to be able to hire you.
EAD card.
Exactly. And so at that point, I would say, you know, your choice. But once you get into kind of the hiring manager conversation, again, I had it both ways, where students openly had told hiring managers, or, you know, if you're switching from job to job and such, if it doesn't get asked there, for sure it needs to be mentioned during offer stage, because I mean, again, you can't get around that. And then they will make that decision. And unfortunately, if they decide to rescind, you know, it's what it is. But I would say that at that point, at least for SAP experience, when we're about to make an offer, you know, it's really hard to rescind an offer, you know, unless we find some legality issues. But if they have fell in love with you in the interview process, we most likely will try to figure it out at that time. And I'm not saying not to try to skirt anywhere, but also, you know, trying to give you the best chances as well too.
So great, June.
Yeah, so to confirm, should I ask it during interview, or would you say after I get the offer?
I feel like there's, and Kwan, you've coached a lot, feel free to add in, but I feel like there, you know, in my perspective, there's not always a black and white answer on this. And I would say that, you know, have the conversation and let it flow as it is, right? You know, again, whether you say it in the beginning or whether you say it during offer stage, you're gonna have to tell them regardless, right? And I think the biggest thing is, do you want to waste your time or their time when you know? But then also you're taking a chance, because if they move you to hiring manager round and they absolutely, you know, really love you, maybe they're willing to go that chance, right? So then that's something you need to consider, is that maybe, because you're not being dishonest unless they ask you and you do answer the opposite. If they're not asking you, you also don't need to freely give it up, but eventually you will need to.
So good, June. And me, you know, first of all, when you have a conversation with your potential employer, sell yourself as a candidate for the position. That is the first thing that you have to do. And as June mentioned, if they don't ask, and if it's not the, you know, requirement for the job, you don't have to let them know that you're different from other candidates because of your visa status. Okay. And apply for the job that did not mention in the job description that they just need permanent resident or citizenship, just like what June mentioned. So security clearance position, don't even bother applying for those jobs. So apply for the right job, the hard to fill job, the one that they will need candidates that beyond domestic because of the skills gap in this economy, right? And then when you're in front of the hiring manager, sell your skills, sell your capabilities, not sell your visa status.
I like that, Kwan. Don't sell your visa status. You're the same as another student graduating with a similar major.
Thank you, June. Yes. Yeah, we have seen so many cases, right? And I think we have some good questions from Mario, if I'm not wrong, in the chat box. Or tip?
It is a tip.
Okay. What did Mario say?
Okay, so Mario said that a quick tip that he used at previous virtual career fairs when interacting with a recruiter is he would try to look them up on LinkedIn and try to get an idea of who they are as a person. So going back to what June said, research, it's very important, people. So
So
that is
good.
a tip that you should bear in mind after this webinar. Always do
That's
your
so
research.
good. That's so good. Thank you so much, Mario, for sharing these tips. Awesome. Yeah, we have lots of ICOS friends here in this call. Good to
Yeah.
see you all. And okay, I think Mario also raised his hand as well. So let me unmute you, Mario. Please feel free to ask
Yes.
questions.
Thank you everybody for being here. And yes, thank you for reading that quick tip. I actually just did that with June just now, and it's very great to meet you. So putting word into practice, right? But June, I also had an additional question. I never took part in an internship, but I took part in a mentorship. How is that viewed? Whenever you are applying for a job, is it viewed along the same lines as an internship, or is there like sort of a difference between the two?
Yeah, and help me a little bit. Your mentorship, is that more like a shadow experience and just getting advice from a mentor?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, because I took part of the mentorship during COVID times, usually it is a shadowing type mentorship, right? Where you follow your mentor around the office and get to learn about what they do. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it was very much virtual. So, we just essentially set up projects of what things I wanted to accomplish. Towards the end, I did get around about the office and we did get to meet, but again, it wasn't as if pre-COVID times.
And Mario, I would caution you to not downplay that. Actually, during COVID times is the most difficult to do anything, both internship and mentorship or shadowing. And I'm sure you probably saw it. Now, I would say, obviously, between internship and mentorship, internship, depending, if you made the most out of it, you could have a lot on your resume, right? If you were practical, hands-on, involved a lot, because some internships are like shadow, opportunities as well too. But I definitely wouldn't discount it. I would say, make the most out of your mentorship, your shadow experience, and add all of kind of the highlights, the goals that you came out of it with on your resume. But I definitely wouldn't discount it. And I would actually advise you to add, some type of statement that, you did it through the COVID times, because that shows your resilience, right? And a lot of people, it's difficult for them to work through virtual aspects as well too. So I certainly wouldn't discount it as someone who hires young people, and I certainly hope that other companies wouldn't either.
Thank you for that response. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
These are wonderful tips and insights that we're learning. I'm sure our participants are learning a lot of the things that they would apply later on as they become early talents. And so, June, can you tell us some more about the STAR program at SAP? Because as an early talent, I'm really interested in what SAP is doing.
Absolutely. So the STAR program, standing for Student Training and Rotation, is a multi-year rotational internship program. And so it runs in now 12 countries, because we just added South Korea recently this year. And so it is to help engage and give you that practical hands-on experience, but it's not just 3 or 6 months. While those are really great as well to put on your profile, we actually target students, usually in sophomore going into junior year. And we're probably one of the few that would hire either freshmen or sophomores as well too. And the reason why is SAP is a technology company, right? And it's not rocket science, but our technology is proprietary. And so what we want to do is we want to bring you in, we want to teach you it, and we want to give you the real world experience, but we want to give you a diverse, experience. And so students usually do, whether it's 6 months to a year in one team, then they rotate. And so they rotate different different teams, and it could be a mix of teams. So it could be technology, it could be project management, it could be anything. And so in the end, when they're about to graduate, my job also, is to help them find full-time employment anywhere within SAP. So you can go anywhere of our 100 plus 200 locations in SAP. So the idea is really to prepare you. And then we build that pipeline for the business. Maybe the development organization says, I want a more early talent, but I want one that knows a little bit about SAP, has a little bit experience. Well, here you go. This person's, students graduating has been here 2-3 years. What's better than that than, maybe someone fresh off the street too, who, doesn't know about SAP or has any idea about, our culture or how we operate. So that's, the STAR program in general. We do have other programs that are not so much kind of so exclusive that you have to commit, because I know some of you are just, can work in the summers only and need to focus on school. We have the IXP internship program, which is amazing, and it does run out of Chicago. If some of you guys are from there on this call, also Seattle, I saw, West Coast, Pittsburgh. So we're all over in that. And if 3 months only works for you or 6 months, please look up that program as well. But SAP's experience in general, for whether it's interns or early talent, we have a full program, full strategy to really incorporate you, to provide networking opportunities, to provide you access to leaders, leadership programs to help you develop those necessary skills, should you want to get to that level as well.
Wow, I admire the program and the investment that you put into early talent. It's such a great effort. And I see that in our chat, people have been sharing fantastic tips. And so again, if you ever have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box and get the chance to hear from June and Coach Kwan. Coach Kwan, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, I think in the chat box, we talk a little bit about channels to network and meet professionals, right? And I think one of our participants, Tanya, also shared the information about Toastmasters. And me myself just got invited as a guest at Toastmaster in New York chapter as well. And it was amazing experience. So if any students would love to, practice public speaking, tune into our next event with Mary Helen. Okay, I will share the link to sign up for that event later on. It's going to happen in October, and she is also one of the active member and leader at the Toastmaster Club in New York. So yeah, you can learn more about Toastmaster from her in the next event. Yeah, just want to add right there. And Alyssa, I know that you also have some backup questions as well. We can answer like one more question and see if we have any other questions from our participants.
Okay, sounds good. So I myself identify as an early talent, and I am still in the process of looking into programs as well as branding myself. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about how do I, say, for example, like advertise what I lack in experience. So again, soft skills. And so how do I communicate that whenever I'm in a career fair? Because I know it's a hard thing to measure on the spot. And so what are your tips for me to effectively communicate that to recruiters or employers?
Yes, I can kickstart June because you have shared so many great tips already. I can add into that as well. As June mentioned before, do lots of research. And those kind of knowledge research that it shows your passion for the position, for the company. And passion is something abstract that cannot be put on a resume, right? Another thing, if you want to highlight soft skills or leadership opportunity on the resume, you can definitely highlight your school projects, school clubs, school activities. So don't leave that out. feel free to put that in order to highlight something that beyond your academic disciplines, right? And during a career fair, just be very active listener, and then show your thoughts process whenever they share with you any insights. Add your own points of view on top of that. That already shows that you are a logical thinker, you are a great communicator. So if you get a chance to be in front of the hiring manager at the career fair, it's a perfect opportunity for you to shine with that soft skills that will even be better than a piece of resume.
Yes. And
June,
it's
would love to
important
hear your insight too. Yes, please, Alyssa.
I mean, okay.
Go ahead, June. Go, please.
I would say completely agree, Kwan, on that, but also noting and adding, Alyssa, you had mentioned, what about some areas where you might not be good at, or, we always say there are weaknesses, right? Or challenges. And that's such a tough, question sometimes, my students ask me as well, and me as a human being, if I ever applied somewhere, right? What I'll say is, as Kwan said, highlight those other aspects, right? But also, if you're not always asked that at a career fair, but definitely if you get into an interview process and you're asked that, be honest, open and authentic of the areas that you feel you need improvement in. And I know, try not to say the standard, whatever line that they always say is your weakness, but what I'd like to hear is, then what are you doing about it, right? Follow it up. So maybe you're not good at time management, but tell me how you're improving on it, how you've reflected, and how you're improving on it. So for example, I had a student, and he didn't have his GPA on his resume when I interviewed him. Not a deal breaker, right? But I think most of you are told, put a GPA if it's healthy, right? And so I asked him, may I ask what your GPA is? And he said, 2.5. So I said, okay. But what he said was, he explained to himself, he said, my first year of college was really tough. I had a hard time managing time, managing schoolwork, whatever. This semester I've gone up, 2.8, and my goal is, to get at this. That's it. As an employer, that's all I'm seeing is that you recognize what your challenge is and what are you doing about it.
So great.
That's true. What's important is what we're doing about it in order to improve ourselves. Okay.
Yeah.
So if any of our participants have other questions, again, feel free to drop them, as we have a few minutes left to our webinar, and we'd love for your questions to be answered.
So I see Carmen is at SAP and is part of our IXP program. So thank you so much for coming. And she had a question, and she's interested in potentially moving into an early career setting upon graduation, and she wanted to learn kind of tips and advice, specifically for SAP, as you know, Carmen, being there, we're 100,000 plus employees, right? So many opportunities available to you. I would say start that networking now. I'm not sure if you graduate in December or in spring, but, put it out there to your manager now. I love SAP, and whether it's you like this role or a different role, could you recommend people to talk to? Go to a lot of early talent stuff that we have. Also the Businesswomen's Network. We have a lot of speaker series and good collaboration with women leaders. We have so many events for early talents. I would say register for what you can. Talk to your manager so your manager has it on their radar. Oh, Carmen wants to stay here, and here she wants to be here. So it really just is about you taking the steps, right? We can provide the tools, the resources like these webinars, but the next step is going to be you to be able to attend these and extract what you can out of it. I hope that answered your question.
And thanks for joining us, Carmen.
Yeah.
All right. I see Mario is raising his hand.
Yes, if I can ask another question, hopefully I'm not interrupting anybody else having a question. But June, earlier you had mentioned that, when it comes to sponsoring international students into getting a job here in the US, you had said that, companies look at the cost of essentially integrating that person into the workforce. And I know it varies by company, but is that something you believe is the main factor? I've always, thought that it might have to do with, whether they were STEM related. My background is in technical writing, user experience. So I was always afraid that because I wasn't like an engineer, that I wouldn't be able to find a position, that had a sponsorship. Can you give us a little bit more insight on that?
Absolutely. And Kwan, please feel free to add in because you've worked with a lot of internationals as well. I mean, from my experience, I don't think it necessarily has to do with STEM related. I mean, obviously, we know a lot of the gaps and the job openings, at least for SAP, are related to STEM, right? But it's not necessarily, I believe that it does have a cost associated, but not just that, also the legalities that go into it from a government perspective, right? That we can't control. So it's a variety of that, but we have our own law firm that we work with for sure, and they help guide us as well, and they help usher in all the international processes with both international transfers and internationals that get hired. But a lot of it is the cost related to sponsor, and then later, obviously, if you stay with us a certain amount of time, we want to start the green card process. And for us to start that process, and we work with our legal team and the law firm, it's a lot, investment. So that's from our perspective. I don't think it has necessarily anything to do with kind of you're not being an engineer. But Kwan, what do you think? Yeah.
You're so right, June, 100% with you, right? STEM degree, it helps you to, as an international student, in terms of you can try 3 times of H-1B application. But it has nothing to do with the decision whether that employer wants to hire you or not. They will hire you because of your skills, your experience, your expertise, right? Yep. One of my students from UW Medicine, Revati, actually we're gonna speak together tomorrow at University of Wisconsin Medicine as well. And she's got a non-STEM degree, bachelor's degree. She got a job at Toyota, material handling. And the role was digital quality analyst. It pretty much sounds like technical, but she's not technical. And she's got a degree in marketing, right? So that thing can happen too. Global company, as long as you have a good network inside the company, you can show your capabilities and build trust with the hiring manager. Anything can happen. Don't sell yourself short because you don't have a STEM degree. Half of ICAway students are non-STEM.
Yep, absolutely.
I love that.
Thank you guys so much for that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love what you said, Coach Kwan. And there's a common saying that your network is your net worth. So it's really important to build those meaningful relationships. And so that will be our last question as we are nearing the end of our webinar. And I would just like to ask June and Coach Kwan if they have any final thoughts that they'd like to share with our participants.
Kwan?
June,
do you want to? Okay. I mean, first, I will say thank you so much. I go back to the quote that Warren Buffett said, the best and biggest investment that you can make is in yourself. And you started today by attending this webinar, getting yourself out there and getting, the advice from all of us. So, kudos to you. I wish you all the best. And especially as we enter career fair season, some of you are graduating, some of you are looking for internships. Take advantage of this opportunity now, especially if most of them are virtual. I'm loving it because I get that one-on-one 10 minutes connection with these potential students. So take advantage of it where you're not in a crowded hall with competing noises and things like that, and sell yourself. Don't worry about the visa international thing. That'll come later. Let them see your authentic self. And I'd love to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me, and I wish you all the best in this semester, this quarter, this year coming up. And thank you so much to Kwan for having me. As always, I admire what you do. And then also Alyssa, you know, I could never do what you all do, putting myself out there, and you all are so great. So thank you.
Thank you, June. Coach Kwan, go
It's
ahead.
such an honor to have you with us, June. This is the second time that we collaborate. The first time was I interviewed you in our podcast, and make sure you go into ICAway.com/podcast. You can listen to June's interview with me back before the pandemic. And she talked about how to become the early talent as well. So all June's advice today is gold. Remember, you can watch the recording as well, take notes and do it, all right? We give you all the tips, all the advice that we can, as much as we can within this 1 hour, but the one who need to make it happen is you. You need to take action. You need to get out there and let the world know that you exist, okay? Don't worry about your work authorization. Leave it out from the equation, right? You need to be a talent. You need to build meaningful connections with people, and work sponsorship will be in front of you on its own. Trust in the process and also believe in yourself. And I'm rooting for you 100%. And Alyssa, you are such a great example of the early talent. I really appreciate that you joined us today, and you are a great moderator.
Thank you for having me. And again, to all our participants, thank you for spending your Friday with us. I know you could be anywhere in the world right now and doing other things, but you chose to spend it with us on this webinar. And again,